toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call the police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
The struggle as to strike.
The Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.
Sunday morning. I mean, I can say that without any fear of controversy, because it is what it is now. Our first day of another week, even before some of us is the last day, I'm at Mofogbe, and this is how I welcome you to this edition of Global Mornings, especially the weekend, as we wind down, quite frankly, and there's no better time to be alive than today. It's a 1-hour package where we will make our best to just ensure it's worth your time. As always, we look at these stories for you across national days, just try to, as it were, establish highlights of these stories, the developments, and then also talk about the angles around them. So these stories are really not fresh per se, but they have become what we call developing stories, which means that they've evolved over time, a couple of hours, few days, few months, and what have you. So quite a number of them this week alone. Therefore, as we wind down and just enjoy the Sunday, starting from this morning, we look at what this evolution essentially is about. One of such stories now is one that has to do with health. Again, it's a variant of some kind, the XEC, which some people call the Czech virus, alright, that's been big talk right now, beyond the health space, for example, and the Ministry of Health and its core agencies are now creating as much awareness about it, and for most part of this week on Global Television is also going to feature as a very critical aspect of our conversations, because people have to be well, people have to be alive to do anything else. Of course, you have to be well, be in the right state of mind to be able to do a transmission here at Global Television, for our anchors to come on air and host programs and do all of the things that we do here at Global TV. So we'll talk about these issues. What exactly are we dealing with in Nigeria? What do we understand about this health concern? All right, as it is, we'll be talking with those who have a handle on this issue, especially senior doctors and those particularly in the field of public health, to help us understand what the origin is, what the pattern has been, the implications for us as a people, and what can be done to quickly nip it in the bud. I mean, Nigeria has seen more than a handful of these issues. Remember, exactly 10 years ago, we had Ebola in this country. We will forget so in a hurry. The gentleman that brought it here, late Patrick Sir, who came from Liberia, flew to Lagos, and of course the aspect that has to do with late Dr. Adedevo and all of the issues around it. How COVID-19, I should say Ebola at that time, became a big problem, but Nigeria showed leadership, Nigeria took initiative, we were able to nip that in the bud, even though that doctor, one of the finest this country has ever produced, had to pay the ultimate price for it. But today we're in a better place as a country, otherwise Ebola would have wreaked havoc, done irreparable damage to the fabrics of this nation, socially and otherwise. And then we moved away from that, and the next thing we had to deal with just about 5-6 years down the line was COVID-19, and see what COVID did to the world, see what it did to even some African countries. But Nigeria was able to also find its way around it in such a way that the damage was minimal, the casualty level was narrow. Alright, that seems to be all behind us now. That's really run out of the woods from this new development about the XEC virus, and that in itself is one public health emergency that Nigeria should already be dealing with. We'll be speaking with people from the health space, particularly those from the Nigerian Center for Disease Control and Prevention, NCDC, and then those who are also in the field of health, talking about how public public health emergencies like this play out, what their manifestations or symptoms are, what the implications will be for Nigeria as a country, and the steps that must be taken by both authorities and citizens to be able to address this issue within the shortest time possible. All right, quite a lot to talk about, but let's take a quick break. We're going to come back and then talk a little more and come back after that and bring you paper headlines. Do stay with us. There's a reason to be concerned about developments in our country. One of the issues, just before we go right to the papers this morning, is one that has to do with the cash paucity, the naira paucity we're now seeing in our country. All right, there has been for a few days, depending on where you live in this country. Some people say a few months, all right, or at least a few weeks, all right, of what appears to be naira scarcity. Now you hardly find ATM terminals dispensing cash, just a few of them. There's a chance that in your area, whether in your neighborhood or where you work, that you will find an ATM terminal dispensing cash. Therefore, you're left with an option to go to a POS point. And now there has been some sort of theory around some kind of, if you like, a change in the order of how people access their money, cash in particular. Before now, it would be you either walking into the bank to collect your money or to draw your cash, or you have to use the ATM. But today it will appear your first port of call is the POS, which has become a sub-sector, so to speak, today. Just look at a typical street in Nigeria today, end to end, you see the number of POS terminals that you have and what these guys do every day in terms of the volume of transactions that you have to process. While that in itself is legitimate and not a bad idea, the shift now has become that you almost don't find any use for the ATM terminals planted across this country, because you know ultimately you still have to go back to the POS guy. And what on the street says that the bulk of these POS terminals or these business points where you have POS service are owned by bankers. So the theory, again I say the theory, is that these bankers and those who are shrewd managers, those who are cutthroat profiteers, would get cash in bulk from the banks and disperse this cash across their POS terminals in such a way that by the time I go to the bank, they are stranded, there's no cash to give to me. So imagine I'm collecting, let's say, a small, relatively speaking, 100,000 from my bank, for example. They can't give me more than 50 or even 40. But I'm under obligation to get 100,000 naira cash. What do? I have to eventually find myself at a POS terminal, alright, because they place a charge for every 5,000, in some cases even 1,000 collect. Now, recent experience has shown, I can attest to that you don't pay at least 150 naira to be able to access as small as 5,000 naira. Some POS points will say it's 200 naira for you to access that. So there's another evil that has just been started now by these POS terminals. Now, I'll tell you how bad it is. The CBN has threatened, the CBN has rolled out measures that will be taken against errant banks, that is, banks who refuse to comply with the guidelines of the CBN. Now, if you know how the CBN functions, for example, you already should understand that the CBN from time to time releases guidelines and advises commercial banks in particular as to their operations, their modus, in terms of how you deal with customers, whether it's KYC, the threshold for cash withdrawal, whether through checks, through over the counter, ATM terminals, debit cards, or what have you. So the banks understand these dynamics like the back of their hand. The challenge, however, is that these commercial banks are commercial for a reason. They've got to make profit. Now, that's not a problem. However, the challenge is the extent to which these banks go to make profit. Now, the CBN is now beginning to realize that, for the most part, these banks are, as it were, flouting its own guidelines, which in itself is an offense, which is an aberration, all right, which constitutes an infraction, because the CBN is the regulator of the financial sector. So if the CBN releases guidelines for banks, regardless of what tier these banks belong to, it means that the least they can do is to comply. Where that is not happening, as we have in this instant case about the point of sale terminal people, it means that the Apex Bank, the regulatory institution called the Central Bank of Nigeria, does have a task, a responsibility within the confines of its mandate to address this issue head on. Because the sad part of it is that every time we have a situation like this, it becomes a case of when two elephants fight. Of course, it is the grass that suffers. And this grass, with due respect, so to speak, for want of better words, is Nigerians, because it's the everyday Nigerian that uses the POS. It's the everyday Nigerian who has to go to the bank to get money for this, get money for that, for essentials. Why do people first off have to suffer to make money, to earn money? And they also have to suffer to be able to access this money. Now, recently, the CAC, that is the commission that is responsible, the Corporate Affairs Commission responsible for registering businesses in this country, streamlining business operations, did say that every point of sale terminal as a business must be registered. In other words, I can't just start a point of sale business by way of doing cash back or cash specific transactions without having a business name, business entity kind of arrangements. So the CAC to that extent says that you've got to register your business. And we saw how much most of these POS operators dragged before they managed, before they reluctantly moved to register their businesses. Even at that, a good number of those still don't register. And the CAC says, look, we'll give you an extension. First of all, we'll give you a deadline. Second, we'll give you an extension. By the time this window closes, we're done and dusted, and the commission will move to ensure that, those who decide to be recalcitrant are shown the way out or dealt with within the confines of the law. Now, this POS phenomenon, as we know it now, especially this aspect of it that has a criminal element, is such that it's reminiscent of the kind of Nigeria that we have, when you have a system where there are laws, robust laws for that matter, but it appears there are none, because implementing those laws, pursuing those laws to a logical conclusion becomes a problem. How do you have a POS business that seems to be more powerful than the financial sector? It's a huge question to ask. However, whether we're going to find an answer or not remains to be seen. Again, in the final analysis, this development, as ugly as it is, puts a lot of work in front of the CBN. You can't have a gang, because that appears to be what it is now, because what you have is a bunch of individuals who just come together and say we want to form a formidable front, and we don't care who the regulator is. The CBN has been challenged. How the CBN will respond, what its response will be, how soon it will respond to all of this, is what we'll be waiting for, especially starting this new week, because tomorrow is Monday, for example. We're going back to business, people are going back to the streets. What experience will they have with how they access their own money that will be different from what the experience had been the last few days or the last couple of weeks? Alright, another quick break. This will see us through to the headlines across national dailies today. Alright, let's switch gears now to the papers. The Vanguard is our first part of call. We look at the headline above the news. First off, the kicker is Alfred Babalola versus Dele Fayotimi. Anxiety as activists dare police threaten protesting in Lagos, Abuja, Ekiti, UK on Tuesday. There's a writer with that story. Over offers detention. My story by Alfred Babalola. You find all of these details on page 26 of the Sunday Vanguard. Okay, what do we have? Star Story says Tinubu tax. That's your kicker. Negotiate. ACF, NEF, AYCF list conditions to cease fire. Then the few riders as well. Governor Sani, Gumi, Shehu Sani, others, Ali Fears. President will never undermine participatory democracy. Idris, Information Minister. And then what else? 45,699 applicants jostle for NNPC jobs. 45,699 applicants jostle for NNPC jobs. You find those details on page 28 of the Sunday Vanguard. Alright, West University best graduating students. I didn't have a boyfriend. Incidentally, many young ladies will have back and forth around this, and the sense of the academic wondering what's the correlation between bagging a first class degree and not having. Well, I'm sure the point the lady is trying to make is that she has to set up priorities right. But then I'm not so sure the message she's trying to pass is that a condition or a precondition for you to earn or bag a first class is not to have a boyfriend. But you see, people have to do what works for them. It is what it is now. People can still have a social life and do all of the things that are social on campus and end up with a first class. Conversely, another person can decide that I don't want to do all of these social things you guys do and struggle with a tutu. So the dynamics are not very clear, straightforward. The nuances are a bit tricky. But the point being made here is that align your priorities. At some point you have to realign them. Just know what works for you, know what comes first, and be sure that ultimately you keep the main thing. That's what matters. You can't be sent to school by your parents, or even if you send yourself to school, for example, and allow things that are pedestrian, things that are secondary or should be taking the back seats become your priority number one. That's the point being made. So even if first class is not your goal, you must have some other targets you're trying to accomplish. Put this in front of you. Never take your eye off the ball. That's the point. Alright, so let's not get it out of context. But let's see what more we have here. Alright, LG alerts Nigerians to new COVID variant XEC in 29 countries. Unease in Anambra after Archbishop driver go missing. IPOB speaks a second declaration of Biafra in Finland. That's a place where Simon has now been taken into custody, and we understand that Nigeria is working on possible extradition. Let's see how that happens. And because of the week on scale of justice, we'll be discussing the issues around extradition. What's kind of relationship Nigeria has with these countries, including Finland, which is an instant case right now, because MLA, what the lawyers call mutual legal assistance, is required for you to be able to carry out extradition process. For that to happen, the question we're asking is, do you have such an understanding with a country like Finland or any of the countries within this Scandinavian region? Alright, but that's a different kettle of fish, which we are not ready to deal with on the program this morning. In the meantime, that's what we're done with the Vanguard newspaper. Let's turn to the Sunday Independent, which, as is always the case, has quite a number of headlines for you. We'll start with the big story. It says, what are Tinubu's travels worth? What are Tinubu's travels worth? In other words, what value is it on Tinubu's travels? Three riders. Nigeria is unimpressed by French SA agreements. Worry over accidents, antecedents of French government. See benefits in SA visas for businessmen tourists. Read up those details on page 2 of the Sunday Independent. Tinubu sacks Atuma, nominates Emeka Iwobu as chairman of Southeast Development Commission. Details on page 7. Alright, Honorable Ugochire remains a member PDP. LG World ESCO making party leader in Imo. And I will take it out the little to see what we've got there with the picture of the now embattled Dele Faotini. Take It Back movement declares peaceful protests over Faotini's remand. LP lawmakers' defection as early augury of 2027 alignment. Decentralization key to resolving Nigeria's problems. Adikuru, decentralization key to resolving Nigeria's problems. But are we ready just yet to have that conversation? There are those who have called for regionalism. They're saying let's go to the regional system that we once had some decades ago in this country, and they are quick to just spot for you, highlight for you some of the benefits that came with the regional system of government that we had in Nigeria back in the day. And they say, look, if we were to only go back, if only we would just go back to that system of government, Nigeria would be better for it. Contrary to that, there are those whose view is that the people who have quote-unquote destroyed this democracy or are destroying this democracy are also going to destroy the regional system of government. So what we need to change, is it the system of government or the system of the thinking? I leave that to you to ponder on. But I'm sure you have one or two more headlines to look at from the Sunday Independent for you this morning. LG autonomy elusive as governors continue to call the seal. Interesting. Well, I think that Supreme Court judgment that ceded autonomy to the local government system is being questioned now, given the practices of these state governments and how the governors, as the state executives or chief executives of states, carry themselves. Right? We'll see what happens in the days and weeks and months ahead. But we've got to start leading from the bottom up. We can't continue this centralization of system as we know it, right? But that story, that headline has its own rivals here. The first one says, councils need grassroots support to be independent. Or the new legislations can't work in light of current realities. Or hearing mixed feelings over impact of Eurobond on Naira stability. Two writers as well. Experts call for caution, effective management of proceeds. The second says, seek increased development, productivity, balanced trade efficiency. That headline has a picture of Minister of Finance, who doubles as coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edo. The last one is at the foot of the front page of the Sunday Independent, and it tells us, group comments Amnesty International's report on End Bad Governance protest. Find those details on page 6 of the Sunday Independent. Alright, let's flip over now and bring you the Sunday Punch newspaper. We begin with the headlines above the main plate of the paper. One here says, experts demand tough monitoring after deadly virus hits 43 countries. So Nigeria has got to wake up. That's what the person is saying now. Anglican Church resorts to prayer over missing Archbishop driver. That's in Anambra State. So quite a sad development right there. And then one here with a picture of President Bola Tinubu reads, frozen accounts. Opposition parties differ over reps ultimatum to Tinubu. APC searches for peace as crisis persists in 7 states. I don't plan to leave inheritance for my children. Non-Nigerian pharmacists. I don't plan to leave inheritance for my children. Non-Nigerian pharmacists. So what does he want to do? He wants to empower them enough to not need his estate when he passes on. Is that what he wants to do? Yeah. For you, I'd like to find out on page 15 of today's issue of the Punch newspaper. Meanwhile, we have the star story here with Akika, new tide. Cash scarcity bites harder as banks shun CBN threats. The writer says banks favoring high-end customers as credited to CBN official. Raising 3 children with cerebral palsy overwhelming mother. Of course, that goes without saying. Raising 3 children with cerebral palsy overwhelming. It was quite overwhelming to read, let alone to be the mother of these very special children, right? Life is what it is. I felt ashamed keeping virginity ex-beauty queen Akin Feshi. I felt ashamed keeping virginity ex-beauty queen Akin Feshi. Well, read her story on page 26, or page 20 I should say, of the Punch newspaper. And then we have one more for you on the front of the paper. Presidency fixes February 25 for National Youth Confab. That's in just about 2 months. February 25 for National Youth Confab. Alright, so let's go on another break quickly. This time when we return to the Nation newspaper for you. That's where we have more stories, and we'll look at 3 more others after that. Do stay with us. Distracted. You didn't even know that I took a break. Please play your promo, what was it called again? Ibrahim Baba, Ibrahim for president 2027. Anybody know who for Ibrahim will work for Global TV again? Man. Global Morning is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
Global Morning aims to deliver newspaper review, latest news with experts on key global issues.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and internationals.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Mondays to Sundays to a wide range of the latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest.
And the president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning.
welcome. The Nation newspaper, big story says, Person of the Year, the vulnerable Nigerian, quiet hero of 2024. I like how the Nation puts it this morning. It says here, with a bit of synopsis, and reads word for word, the vulnerable Nigerian is the Nation newspaper's Person of the Year for embodying, I should say, the pace and resilience in a perilous hour and for exercising creative audacity in the face of challenging economy. There's no better way to put it. I mean, this is concise, precise, and straight to the very heart of the matter. So the Person of the Year for the Nation newspaper is the vulnerable Nigeria, who they say is the quiet hero of 2024. That's quite thought-provoking, isn't it? But it is what it is now. Let's take things a notch higher. So we look at three headlines for you above the main plate of the Nation newspaper. We look at the one on the left end, top left end corner. Says tax reform bills. That's the kicker. VAT sharing formula tops Senate executive party. The writer says a tax system long overdue for reform. That's Minister. PAP crisis, disagreement lingers over plots to remove Banago. High food prices threaten Christmas, New Year festivities. High food prices threaten Christmas, New Year festivities. All right, and it is with you on page 5 of the Nation newspaper. And then we move further a little now to find a few other stories for a few other papers. Actually, but let's see the Leadership Sunday, shall we? One headline with a picture of CBN Governor Olayemi Kadoso. It reads, cash scarcity persists as banks ignore CBN order. Is a shame. Nigeria's tax system long overdue for reform. Minister. Medical experts differ on causes of rising deaths among Nigerians. The first of three writers says high blood pressure, malnutrition-related diseases account for most deaths. CNB nutritionist others link trend to economic squeeze. And lastly, there is no correlation, consultant physician. No detection of COVID variants XEC in Nigeria, says federal government. Well, the federal government has said that, what can we do? But now that we hear over 40 countries have been hit, I mean, with scientific evidence, the least Nigeria can do is to be on the lookout. We can't be hot napping at this point. That's the long and short of the story. All right. Then here, it says, equip young journalists for ever-evolving media landscape as we tasks schools. Listen. Police withdraw personnel, armored vehicles from Sanusi the Second Palace. Police withdraw personnel, armored vehicles from Sanusi the Second Palace. Rebels seize most of southern Syria. You understand the rebels are already around the fringes of Damascus. That's where you have the seat of power, where you have President Bashar al-Assad. There are some unconfirmed reports saying that President al-Assad has left the country in fear that what had happened in Afghanistan just a few years ago is also going to take place in Syria. But again, those reports are unconfirmed. But the pattern is very clear. Things are not looking good, and who knows what will happen, because the rebels are closing in, and that's happening real quick. If you follow the news the last 2-3 days, you probably will have better insight about this development. But I'm sure that's something that Ramsey Enoch Agbo would talk to you about on diplomatic matters in the course of this week. Alright, let's take it a bit further and move to other papers. Enough of Leadership Sunday. Alright, it will lead us now to the Sunday Sun, so we can get some sun on this Sunday morning. Let's start with the headlines above the main plate here. It says FEMA, that's Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, that's the kicker. Goroyo, Agbasi, others storm Lagos, Ogun. And we have two riders. One here says residents excited as minister reacts or leads riot act to defaulting contractors. Stakeholders applaud infrastructure development efforts of Tinubu's administration. PDP NWC counters Imo chapter dismisses Ugochire's expulsion. In fact, we understand the gentleman has now been made the leader of the party in the state. Talking about Honorable Ugochire. Alright, so it was very controversial even within the ranks of his party. IPOB disassociates self from Biafra declaration in Finland. Replies Pandef Igala groups on non-Igbo claims. This is getting interesting by the day, but Nigeria must win ultimately. The big story reads, Nigeria's glory will soon return, Oluyemi Tinubu assures. As First Lady Uzodinma Zulum-Bag honorary degrees from FUTO, that is Federal University of Technology, Owerri. Confusion, that's a kicker there. Tax reform bills divide North. Northern senators split as Bangida Ali, Dogara, Senator Sani Sheikh Gini, Reverend Ayab back bills. Coalition of northern groups kick say these bills threat to already dire socio-economic conditions in North. Is not antithetical to Islam, Baba Yusuf. We are yet to take a stand this year. Southeast Caucus to decide on bills tomorrow. So we wait for Monday and look out for what the Southeast Caucus at the National Assembly will decide. I've had good and bad moments. Precious Babatunde, Nollywood actress, producer, says looking forward to playing a role that has to do with incantation. Alright, so hopefully you get that. Be careful what you ask for because you're just most likely going to get it. Alright, what more do we need to talk about here? We see we're done with the Sunday Sun. Let's take a look at a few other papers quickly for you. But this time that has to be the Sunday Telegraph, our very last paper on the program. What does it say? We begin with one here that has a picture of the National Security Advisor, NSA Nuhu Badi. It says CSO petitions NSA, CDS NAS over 90 checkpoints in Southeast. Now for perspectives, the Southeast has 5 states, coming all the way from Abia to Ebonyi to Enugu to Imo and then to Anambra, 5 states. Now you have 90 checkpoints going by this headline of this report that is featured on the Sunday Telegraph today. Now if you were to do the math, if you were to split them, 90 shared amongst 5 states, that means that you are obviously doing close to 20 checkpoints in each of those states. That's what it means. You're doing give or take 17, 18 checkpoints on the average in each of those states. But the question is, beyond the volume, so to speak, of checkpoints, what difference have they made in terms of how secure the Southeast now is in relation to what the situation was security-wise before the proliferation, so to speak, of these checkpoints in the region? Well, we leave that for you to ponder on again. PDP debunks purported expulsion of Ugochire. That's a story on page 5. And then what's more, the big story again is about tax reform bills, and we don't have any choice than to look at it as well. It says tax reform bills, the kicker. Tinubu won't undermine democracy, says federal government. Three writers say moves necessary to strengthen fiscal security. Moves necessary to strengthen fiscal security. President not against amendments. Sources why we are opposed to bills. Right. Alright, party newly detected XEC COVID-19 variant not in Nigeria. That's coming from the authority, so more like a closure for us. JAPA NMA 6 minimum benchmark for doctors' salary, otherwise they will keep living. And then allow courts to decide after Babalola versus Bili Faroti's case. Alfeni Fero. Osho 2026, Adeleke Oyetola Adegbeshola flex muscles over Bola Igi House. Osho 2026, Adeleke Oyetola Adegbeshola flex muscles over Bola Igi House. We need insecurity. That's the start story that we have on the Sunday Telegraph today. Renewed insecurity, your kicker there. Fresh fear grips northwest, northeast states. Southern Kaduna leaders want military barracks in their area. Zamfara residents abandoned cars, bikes, trek along major roads. COAS DG DSS assure on combating dissidents. This is quite an interesting read for you this morning, but we do hope you take out time and look at papers. That's where we're leaving it with the headlines from across our national dailies. But as you step out today or just move further into your day, be sure that you look at the details for yourself, and that way one thing will happen, you'll stay ahead of the news. We'll take another quick break. When we return, it will be time to start drawing curtains.
Global Morning is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
Global Morning aims to deliver newspaper review, latest news with experts on key global issues.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and internationals.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Mondays to Sundays to a wide range of the latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest.
The president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning.
last 1 year plus has been, to put it mildly, extremely difficult for Nigeria. In fact, there are those who now say that this is the hardest of times, economically speaking, that citizens have had to encounter in this country in recent history, basically. But again, that is probably subject to debate because it all depends largely on where you're standing, what your perspectives are about this whole issue. The president himself has never been unequivocal about this issue regarding the place where Nigeria is as a country, the turbulence, the challenge, the economic hardship, and what have you. However, one thing has been consistent in the president's rhetoric, the fact that, yes, it may look hard, it may actually be hard, but things are looking up ultimately, because he says that the rating may be low by members of the public, by citizens. However, the president says he believes and he knows that things are changing for the better. In other words, he's saying that we are no longer where we used to be. But ultimately, that is a decision that Nigerians will have to make. That is a call for citizens, because he who wears the shoe knows where it pinches. In any case, Nigerians must continue to support the president and continue to love their country, because this is the one God gave to us. Any other one we go to is secondary at best. This is the one we have been blessed with. What we do with it, whether those in the political class or those who are being governed, finally and totally depends on us all. And we are Mofobe, and that's Good Morning for you this Sunday, and we want to say a big thank you to you for sharing the moment with us. We will see you again.